Oh, it's looking good. Oh, maybe I should use a thing. A towel, yes. I'm Yewande and I'm making jollof rice. So I was asked by the New York Times to develop a batch of 10 essential Nigerian recipes that reflect my culture and my cuisine. Jollof rice is one of the 10 essential Nigerian recipes. It is a rice cooked in a tomato, pepper, and hot chili based sauce. So it comes out looking bright orange and it's like peppery and fiery and it's just gonna light your senses on fire. Obe ata is the base sauce that jollof rice is cooked in. So Nigerian dishes have a really spicy and fiery element to them, and it's because they're cooked in this base sauce. The last time I was in Nigeria, which was in March 2018, almost every dish came with a side of chopped chilies or like a garnish of like chopped habaneros. So it's like if you didn't get enough in the food, like here's some more. It's really hot there too, so maybe it has something to do with like eating spicy food makes you sweat and cools you down. So I wouldn't really worry about chopping these too finely because they're gonna be pureed in a blender. So in thinking about the 10 essential Nigerian recipes, jollof rice was definitely #1 on the list. You can find all over West Africa different versions of jollof rice. You know, everybody claims that it was theirs first. The national dish of Senegal, the tebojen. I would say jollof rice is like a simpler version of that. I grew up in Lagos, which is in the southwest, and my cooking, my food is very much influenced by where I grew up. I think that one of the hardest parts of this project for me was having to work backwards. Like I know how to make jollof rice, but like, do I know how to write a recipe so that you can make jollof rice? Trying to quantify the amounts. It was research, it was talking to family members, it was pouring through books of like old Nigerian recipes where they're like, use a handful of rice. Whose hands are we talking about? Like my mom's hands are different from my hands. My mom was a recipe developer and she worked for Cadbury's chocolates growing up in Nigeria. I think that I always knew that I wanted to do food or be in food. It was interesting and exciting to me through seeing her do her work. I grew up like thinking like every kid had like a huge 5-pound bag of chocolate hanging out in their kitchens. Yeah. I'm grabbing a habanero chili now. I think the recipe calls for 1, but I'm gonna use 2 because I like it really spicy. Don't try to chop it up. You're just gonna get the oils everywhere and it's gonna be a mess. So just take the stem off and drop the whole thing in the blender. The seeds and all, you definitely want the seeds. It's not gonna be overwhelmingly spicy, it mellows out, trust me. You want a fine puree, not too many chunks in there. So you kind of want this to simmer and reduce a little bit. It's gonna get all nice and thick. And at that point, you could either cool it and refrigerate or freeze it. Growing up and now, I always have obe ata in my fridge or my freezer. This is like the everything sauce. You could even just make it and eat it over white rice. Actually, jollof rice is kind of like a party food. It's like a celebratory food. It's kind of special that it's cooked in the sauce. The stew gets better as it sits. I think that all the elements get tanged out and just love each other. This is gonna take about 18 to 20 minutes to reduce. You let it come up to a simmer. At that point, you could cover it and just kind of let it go on low. So everyone has their own take on it. This is no way a definitive, don't veer from these standards type recipe. I don't think it would be fair if I said these are the 10 Nigerian recipes, you know, like these are my take on the 10 Nigerian recipes. It would be interesting actually to hear more about what other people think the 10 essential Nigerian recipes are. You want to season it closer to when it's reduced by about 1/3. Because as it reduces, if you seasoned it first, it's just going to get saltier. It's reduced to about 2 cups, which is exactly what you need for this recipe. And this recipe doubles up too, so if you want to make a huge batch and multiply by like 4, you can do that. Set it aside and we'll start the jollof rice. I like a heavy bottomed pot. A Dutch oven's great. So I'm gonna start by pouring some oil in the pan and heating it up. I make my jollof rice in the oven. It's just so much easier. I can sort of walk away from it and do other things. The next step is just adding some sliced onions to the pot, to the oil that's heating up. Whew. My eyes are watering a little bit, but it's okay, it's worth it. So I'm gonna move the onions after I stop crying. You're not caramelizing the onions or anything, you're just softening them at this point. Growing up, when my mom made jollof rice, I remember her reserving some softened onions to stir in the finished rice. And so the rice always had this sweet onion crunch to it. So I'm gonna thinly slice the garlic while the onions are softening. Did you guys see that garlic trick? I'm like, that would be so helpful right now if it worked. I just whack them and like peel the skin off. So at this point, the onions are nice and softened. So I'll just take out about half of the best looking ones. I'm gonna saute this just until the garlic is fragrant. So I'm adding in about a tablespoon of tomato paste. The tomato paste just adds a different layer of richness to it. This dish, jollof rice, typically is made on firewood. How would I say that? Over an open flame, which gives it this like nice smoky, burned layer on the bottom taste. I'm adding smoked paprika to the recipe, so you could still get that smoky flavor without like setting off your fire alarm. So the atta that we made goes in at this point. Fresh herbs. I actually really like seeing them poke out at the end of the dish after the dish is done. Most recipes will call for a long grain parboiled rice. That's like my grandmother's way of cooking it. I prefer just a plain long grain rice. I think it cooks just the same. So I'm using a basmati rice this time. The more you stir the rice, the more you'll release the starches in the rice and the stickier it becomes. With the oven method, you don't have to stir it really. You can wash the rice to get the excess starch off. I don't. That might be the lazy method of doing it. I haven't found that washing it, makes a better dish. You want to season it before it goes in the oven, and you can adjust the seasoning after it comes out. It's going to sit in your oven for about 35 minutes at 350 degrees.
Party rice, you could join the party.
You could join the party, baby. So it's been about 35 minutes or so. I'm going to check on the jollof rice and take it out. I'm not going to open it because once it's out of the oven, you want the residual heat to cook the rice the rest of the way. 15 minutes is up. I'm going to peek. Ooh, it smells smoky. The paprika works. I'm fluffing it to sort of rake up the grains of rice. You don't want to do that motion. You sort of want to like pick up the grains of rice. I'm also going to stir in my reserved onions. It also adds some nice color to it. I'm going to taste it for seasoning. You can add some more salt at this point. It needs a little bit more salt, so I'm going to do that. You could actually just serve it right out the pot with all the other sides that it goes with. You would rarely see just a plate of jollof rice. This is like a dish that likes to party with others, even though it's tasty on its own. You could serve it with meat in stew, some plantains. That's typically how you would see it. I think the perfect bite is getting a little bit of everything on your plate. A bit of the onions, some of the plantains, and some of the goat in arrabbiata. That was a perfect bite. Let me take a little piece of plantain.